Değerli katılımcılar,
Ladies and gentlemen, dear attendees, I would like to welcome you all to the end-to-end design of the export process by blockchain technology that is being emphasized by the 11th Development Plan under the auspices of the Ministry of Treasury and Finance. I would like to declare the second meeting open. In this session, EBRD and the Ministry of Trade will be represented in the opening remarks, and then we will be discussing about the public policies and objectives project for the blockchain technology. Yet, at the end of the session, we will be welcoming your questions by way of the chat panel in the Zoom. But considering the limited time of the meeting, there is an information center that is being established, İhracat Blockchain at ates.com.tr is the address that you can convey your questions and comments, messages to after the meeting, where our team will be ready to answer and address. I would like to invite to the floor Mr. Mehmet Ürez as the country director of the EBRD. Thank you very much. Distinguished representatives of the public authorities, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all on behalf of the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development and myself. As you know, this is the second stakeholder meeting that we're organizing as an end-to-end design of the export process by blockchain technology perspective. At this point, I'd like to briefly inform you about the EBRD. Since 1991, which is the establishment year of the bank, has been active in 31 countries to support sustainable development. It's not only through investments, but through competitiveness and Green Deal, inclusion, social gender equality are the fields that we select to accelerate this transformation by way of public-private and also NGO initiatives. Recently, in the post-pandemic period, both the private sector and the public policies have been emphasizing the way of doing trade, and today we are one-to-one concentrated as stakeholder authorities on the blockchain technology. As an international development and financial institution within the framework of strategic and fiscal framework and the digital framework, digitalization, green, and inclusion are the three main fields that we have committed to emphasize in all of our work. Investments, policy initiatives, and advisory activities are extended in all countries that we're active in to support digital transformation. Well, the Republic of Turkey, our country, since 2009, has benefited from more than 15 million euro of investments, and it is the largest country that EBRD has been active in since 2009. So as to strengthen competitiveness of the private sector, we aim at supporting sustainable economic development, and policy dialogue is sustained in this way. One of the pillars of the country's strategy in the Republic of Turkey is to support information technologies and supporting the value chains. In this respect, providing competitive digital technologies, not only private, but also in the public sector, we also aim at supporting the studies in digital transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, the new generation digital technologies also touch our economy, personal and business lives, leading to transformation in all these domains, from production to consumption. All the sectors and segments are affected by this transformation, and one of the fields that it has a big impact is external trade. By the way of using using new
Aynı
generation
zamanda
technologies,
İBRD'nin diğer
efficiency
önemli
is
politika
aimed to
alanları
increase,
olan beşlik
and it
ekonomik
also
dönüşüm
corroborates
ve
with
başta
green
kadınlar olmak
economic
üzere
transformation,
dezavantajlı
and
grupların
women
ekonomiye
also
katılımını
vulnerable
destekleyecektir.
group
Bu
support
kapsamda
will
8
also
Mart
be involved
tarihinde
more
açılış
in
toplantısını
economy.
gerçekleştirdiğimiz
In this
Türkiye'de
respect, we've
dijitalleşme
launched
sürecinin
digitalization
desteklenmesine
process
yönelik önemli bir adım
project
olan
in March
ihracat
the
sürecinin
8th this
blockchain
year,
teknolojisi
and
içten uca tasarımı
end-to-end
projesiyle
design of the
Ticaret
export
Bakanlığımızla
process
birlikte
by
çalışmaktan büyük
blockchain
memnuniyetin
technology, namely,
içindeyiz.
is the project that we
Proje
are quite keen in
kapsamında
working with the
danışman
Ministry of
firmamız
Trade.
Atez'le birlikte geliştirecek
Together with
süreç
Taipei is
analizleri
our
ve demo blockchain
counseling
platformuyla
firm,
yalnızca ihracat
we aim
süreçlerinin
at not
maliyet
only
ve süreli
supporting the
açılardan
financial process in
iyileştirilmesine
terms of cost and
odaklanmamakta,
process, but at the
teknik
same
altyapı
time, we
önerilerini aynı
consider
zamanda yönetişim
recommendations for
ve
technical
mevzuatta gerekli
infrastructure with a
düzenlemelerin yapılması
look
yönünde
into
sunacağımız
governance
öneriler
and
ile
relevant
ileride karar
adaptations
alıcılara ve
and
kamuoyuna hükümsel bir
modifications in the
perspektif
legislation,
sunmayı
thereby
hedefliyoruz.
providing an
Bu
integrated
çerçevede projemizin
perspective to the
önemli bir
public.
bileşeni de
In
kamu ve
this
özel
respect,
sektör
an important
paydaşlarının
component
blok
of the
zincirinde
project
ticareti
is
kolaylaştırılması
the
üzerindeki
use of
etkileri konusunda
blockchain and
bilgilendirilmesi,
updating
bu
public and
alanda
private
farkındalığın
sectors in the
artırılması
use
ve tüm
of
paydaşlar
blockchain
arasındaki
technologies in
işbirliğinin
trade.
geliştirilmesi.
Therefore,
Bu
it is
vesileyle siz
important to
değerli
increase
paydaşlarımızı
collaboration,
projede gelinen aşama
cooperation, and
hakkında
awareness
bilgilendirmek
amongst all
ve sizlerin
stakeholders.
değerli
In
görüşlerini
this
alarak
respect,
ilerlemek
we
bizler için
take the
çok değerli.
initiative of organizing this
Programın
meeting
devamında
with you,
danışman
our
firmamızla
distinguished
gerçekleştirecek
stakeholders.
sunumda
By
blockchain
the end of the
teknolojisinin
program,
ihracat
our
süreçlerinin geliştirilmesinde
also
sahip olduğu
counseling
potansiyeli
company
teknik
will also be
detaylarıyla dinleme
providing some
imkanı bulacak
technical
ve
details about the
özellikle kamu
project,
politikaları
and
açısından
particularly we will be looking into the
değerlendirmelerde bulunma
public
imkanına
policies in terms of
ulaşacağız.
the way of
Sözü
collaboration.
Ticaret Bakanlığımıza bırakmadan önce projenin
Before leaving the
tasarlanması ve
floor to the
uygulamaya
Ministry of
geçmesinde
Trade,
emeği geçen
I
tüm
would like to
paydaşlara
thank all the
ve projenin
stakeholders having
gerçekleşmesi için
contributed in the
finansman
design
sağlayan donör
and
kuruluşlarımız,
implementation
Hazine
of
ve
the
Maliye
project,
Bakanlığı'na
as
bir
well
kez
as
daha
the Ministry of
teşekkürlerimizi sunmak
Treasury
isteriz.
and Finance,
Blok zincir
which is the
teknolojisinin
donor
getireceği katma değer ve kullanım alanları
party to our
konusunda
project.
konularında tüm paydaşlarımızla yakın etkileşim
We
içerisinde
are aiming
projemizi
at
yürütmeyi
working in
hedefliyor.
close
Proje boyunca
collaboration with all
düzenleyeceğimiz paydaş
stakeholders throughout the
etkinliklerinde
project and
etkinliklerinde
will be
sizler hep
welcoming
yeniden
the
bir araya
stakeholder
gelmeyi düşünüyoruz.
activities to take
Tekrar
place in
çok
the
teşekkür
course of the
ederim
project.
katılımınız için ve
Thank you
sözü
once
tekrar
again for your
Tayfun'a bırakıyorum.
attention and
Çok
Saygılarımla.
attendance.
teşekkür
Typhoon
çok
Bey,
teşekkür ederiz
thank you
Mehmet
very
Bey.
much, Mehmet
Şimdi
Bey.
açılış
And
konuşmaları
now
için
I will be
sözü
leaving
Ticaret
to
Bakanlığı
floor
İhracat
to
Genel Müdürlüğü
um,
İhracat ve Yeni Nesil
Mr.
Teknolojiler Daire
Bülent
Başkanı Sayın Hasan
Tuncer,
Önal'a bırakıyorum.
Mr.
Sayın
Hasan
Başkanım
Önal.
buyurunuz lütfen.
You will be welcome, sir, from the Ministry of Trade.
Şu an sesim geliyor mu?
Gayet iyi geliyor başkanım. Buyurunuz.
Tamam. Bir dakika. Saygıdeğer katılımcılar, Ticaret
Ladies and
Bakanlığı
gentlemen, good
tarafından Avrupa
afternoon.
İmar Kalkınma Bankası'nın
I would like to welcome you all
fon
to
kapsamında
the
yürütülen ihracat sürecinin
second
blockchain
meeting
teknolojisiyle
of the end-to-end design
ülke
of the
içinde
export
uçtan uca
process by
tasarım, düşünme,
blockchain technology
proje kapsamında sizlerle bir
project.
araya gelmekten mutluluk
And
duyuyorum.
the
Her
meeting is
biriniz
being
hoş
organized,
geldiniz,
as you know, in
sefalar getirdiniz.
collaboration with EBRD and
Ülkemizin
the Ministry
ihracat
of
ve
Trade. You're
dijitalleşme
all
endekslerine
welcomed
katkı
to the
sağlamak
meeting. Our
ve
main goal is to
bakanlığımız
provide a
hizmetleri
vision to the
yeni
trade
nesil
policies of the
teknolojiler
country. As you
yardımıyla
know, as the
geliştirilmekte
Ministry of Trade,
çalışmalardan
we've been
birisi
running many activities for the
bugün
new generation
ikinci oturumunu
technologies, and
hep
this
birlikte
project
gerçekleştiriyoruz.
is one of these
2022 yılı sonu
activities. We have
itibariyle
the
tamamlayacağımız
honor of
proje
attending
kapsamındaki
the second
etkinliklerimiz ve
session.
çalışmalarımızla kamuda
With
ve
the
özel
activities
sektörde
of
konuyla
our
ilgili
ministry to
farkındalığı
take place
arttırmak
in
ve
2022, we aim at
farkındalığı
raising
arttırmak
awareness
amacıyla
in the
birçok
public and
etkinliklerimiz
private
olacak.
sectors, and
Bu
this will
tür
be followed by a
etkinliklerimizin biri
series
için
of
bir
activities.
bir
Today, we
araya
are
gelmiş
brought
bulunuyoruz.
to this
Projemizle
platform by
ilişkin
one of
detaylı
these
bilgiler,
activities.
program
Detailed
tanıtımları
information
uzman
about
ve
the
projenin
project will be
başından bu yana süreci
provided by
yöneten
the
değerli
experts of the
arkadaşımız
project
Şafak
after
Hanım
the
arz
introductory
edecektir.
session. I guess it
EBRD
will
ve
be
yükümlülük
Mrs.
firmaların
Shafak Bozkır to
etkin
take the floor and
çalışmaları
make you
için
a
kendilerine
presentation
teşekkürlerimi
on the
sunuyorum.
point of arrival of the
Programın en
project. I would
yaratıcı
like
ve
to acknowledge
çıkarım için
their
verimli
contribution to the
geçmesini
project
temenni
and would
ediyorum.
like to appreciate them for
Temenni
the
ediyorum.
efforts they've been spending. Hope
Çok
the
teşekkür
meeting
ederiz
will
Hasan Bey.
be successful.
Böylece
Thank
açılış
you,
konuşmalarının
Hassan Bey.
sonuna gelmiş
And
olduk.
this brings
Ve
us to the
Ticaret
end of the
Bakanlığı
opening
İhracat Genel
session.
Müdürlüğü Ticaret
And
Uzmanı
now
Sayın Hatice Şafak
Mrs.
Bozkır
Hatice
Hanım
Şafak
bizlere
Bozkır
bu ticaret
Aydoğmuş
süreçlerinde
from the Ministry of Trade will take the floor and give us some information about the targets and public policies of this field. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Today, I will be giving you some information about the activities that we have been running as the Ministry on Blockchain Technologies. The activities are being coordinated by the Directorate General, and I will also be sharing with you policy-making perspective of the Ministry in this respect. We have all started with a workshop where different units attended on the elaboration of the blockchain technology, how the ministry can use the technology, what kind of contribution we can get from the technology for the purposes of the ministry. Experts and the staff of the ministry attended the workshop together, and we've worked as to what we can do in this field. There are some priorities that we have identified. For them, we developed some pilot projects which we considered as a learning process. At the very point, we are trying to derive the new project with the lessons learned. And one of them is the transfer of test results to blockchain. Particularly for the agricultural project, the export and import processes are now to be implemented by some tests by the Ministry of Agriculture. And they may also come after the other, so as to buy time for the exporters and for the to save from time and efforts from the side of the ministries. We've looked into the project whether we can save some time if we can transfer the data to blockchain. The relevant departments of the ministries were involved in the project. Also, we have derived some outcomes as to whether these inputs of the project can be transferred to blockchain or not. It was a learning process for all of us in terms of data sharing. Obviously, we had some problems because the attendees and the employees of the ministries would appreciate that there is embedded, one after the other learning and sharing of information. And the second project is the use of export approvals about some chemicals and whether these approvals can be brought to the blockchain infrastructure. From our ministry, the Department of IT also was involved, and one of the reasons that we picked a field is based on the experiences of the first project. We chose a field where the sharing of information was less and the processes were lean. Therefore, it was this field and this segment we chose together with the Department of IT. We decided to go on with the technical aspects of the project. And based on the experiences of that project, we've also provided an input for the projects to come. I have to say that it's also a contribution to the capacity building of the ministry. At the same time, by way of transferring these processes to blockchain, there were different gains. And if you could pay attention, there are different pieces of legislation, processes, and the departments involved in each project. Therefore, each is quite valuable. And I believe that the second project also contributed to the way of developing blockchain. We have national and international collaborations. I think the most important one is Singapore and South Korea collaborations with the Ministry of Trade of Singapore. We've held some activities both in Turkey and Singapore, and also in terms of the certificates of origin, how we can transfer them into the blockchain infrastructure. And also in South Korea, the Department of Customs also made a demand and requested collaboration with the ministry, but I have to say that it was not possible to make a lot of progression with that department. One of the national activities was the blockchain conference in public sector. I don't know if you were aware, but in January 2019, we had a brilliant conference with a high attendance where we discussed how the blockchain can be applied in different fields, and there were sessions as to what is blockchain blockchain. And our colleagues that were working in the public sector, we aimed at raising awareness and telling them what the blockchain is. Also, we tried to build a network of communication, and I think that the meeting was a success. And the units that are interested in this, we came together with them later. As for today, we've started getting prepared to our project in 2019, and we applied to the EBRD. You know, there is the Ministry of Treasury and Trade, as well as the Ministry of Development that is involved together with the EBRD. I also briefly would like to speak about the expectations of the ministries from the project. But briefly, the project is aimed as also supporting the export processes by way of the blockchain technology. Well, the first phase was also considered initially. The first phase is also to support the export processes within the country, so nationally. We are analyzing the counterparts and how the processes can be transferred to the blockchain infrastructure, whether simplification will be possible, how it will contribute to the time management. This is the fields that we are working on. I think the biggest input that is expected by the ministry is within the process of the blockchain technology is when we want to work on an issue with the infrastructure of the blockchain. People ask why. I mean, what will be the contribution of blockchain? Actually, since we are willing to transfer export processes, we first want to see whether it works out. If it works out, what kind of interests and benefits we can get out of the project, whether there are some cost advantages. If we can respond to these questions, probably it will be easier for all parties to trigger use of the technology. So this is how we started. And as I said, within the framework of the project, foreign trade legislation also will be scrutinized, whether it will constitute major changes as we're trying to transfer the blockchain technology. In addition to that, well, what will be the technical infrastructure, HR infrastructure once and for all we switch to blockchain? Actually, the output of the project is a concept proof. By the way, I don't know if you can hear me well. I can hear you quite well, but I may be misled since I am using the headphones, but everything seems okay. Thank you. Proof of concept will be the output of the project. Once we want to put it into implementation, we will say that these are the requirements of the project. Once we want to put it into practice, I think this will be the biggest expectation from the project. And in the continuum, which means in the second phase project, there will be a counterparty, a country that will be selected, and the process will be included there. So step by step, we will be analyzing all the processes and for the transfer of the export processes to blockchain infrastructure will have been completed. The reason why we are taking one step at a time is the experience that we gathered in the other countries. This is a new technology. It's a large-scale change. Therefore, the smaller steps we take, the better outcomes we will get. Otherwise, we might be stuck at some point in time, and it will only remain as lessons learned. Therefore, we are maybe taking small steps, but we are proceeding quite confidently. As the ministry, these are in general our expectations from the ministry, and in summary, this is all we have done in collaboration with our stakeholders, and this is all I would like to share with you. And if there is any comment or question, I would be more than happy to address to them. Thank you very much, Şafak Hanım. Now we are moving on to the technical presentation from the Project Advisory Authority. We will have Mrs. Ümmü Gülsüm Özalp from ATEZ Software, and will be giving us some technical details about the project, how it's going, and how everything moves on. The floor is yours, Madam.
Merhaba.
Evet, şimdi
Tayfun
gayet
Bey,
güzel.
evet çok teşekkür ederim.
Buyurunuz.
Tayfun Bey çok teşekkür
Well,
ederim.
thank you very much, Tayfun Bey, for the introduction. I would like to thank by expressing my gratitude to all the participants. You know, the kickoff meeting was on March the 8th, and in that session, we briefly spoke about the coverage of the project. Today, I will rather look into the progress of the project. Plus, I would like to take a look at the concept, the time of issuing the invoice, and this patch of the properties or the goods and commodities from the warehouse, and how the blockchain technology can be used in this respect, what the outputs or expected outputs are. Well, I will take a brief look into the blockchain technology. Well, blockchain technology, to start with, is a kind of technology that stores data in a safe and unmodifiable way. It's a specialized database. Before moving on to its impact on our project, I would like to speak briefly about the questions that we have received so far. People tend to ask the following questions most of the time, and the main two issues are as follows. The first one is, when it comes to crypto technologies, crypto money is what comes to people's minds. But before the use of technology, I would like to say that technology is not only about the use of crypto currencies. Actually, the use of blockchain on the finance technology is only one of them. Therefore, in general terms, when we take a look at the blockchain technology in the world, in the supply chains, and in the procedures for the transboundary movement of commodities, there are many ways of using blockchain technology. The second issue that comes up for the blockchain technology is whether blockchain will be replacing an ERP system or not. At this point, maybe for your purposes, this is maybe more than the first question, because within the framework of the project, when we take a look at the activities, we have more than one stakeholder: exporters, transporters, logistics, customs, clearance officers are only a few of these counterparts. We are not aiming at a replacement for the ERP systems, or, as you know, the information system technologies that are being used in the public sector is not attempting to be rewritten. Blockchain technology is about an effective use of the existing systems, where the safer transfer and sharing of data will be possible. At the same time, the transactions in between these systems, or in other words, the dual systems, will be lifted and will be transported to the blockchain systems. In this respect, I would like to emphasize some points. What makes it possible for the system is the blockchain technology, which is not unique. I mean, there are just more than one technologies with dedicated processing mechanisms, rules, and ways of functioning. Within the export processes, information and certificates are produced, and in some aspects, these are commercial secrets, and in some. These are about the data that the ministry must keep. So for the sake of the interests of the parties, using an open and free blockchain technology cannot be considered for the sake of safety. In this respect, the technologies that are being used or the systems that are made available must provide a closed structure for the external users, whereas it will be open for the internal users. And we can give an example on that. An exporter, say, issues an invoice for a proceeding, and it is a piece of data that we consider for the purposes of a project. When you write that into blockchain, you wouldn't like it to be available to the use or the control of any other exporter. But the ministry must make sure that it's accurate, and for the purposes of control, the ministry might have to make a processing on it. Therefore, as we take a look at the procedures, external stakeholders shouldn't have access to this piece of information, yet our authorities like the Ministry of Trade should have control and also surveillance over these processes. In this respect, in this competitive environment, the exporters will make sure and will feel safe that their information and data are kept safe, but at the same time, it will be possible for all exporters and authorities to be included within the network, that the safety for information and data security is ensured. In this respect, for the data analysis and the processes that we're running according to the outputs, this safety, confidentiality will, and also for the sake of the public authorities' transparency, will be ensured by specially authorized blockchain networks. In this respect, so as to create the requested outputs, there is a technology public framework that we choose. Therefore, with this, the stakeholders taken within the network are to be considered as in collaboration in between the authorities. At the same time, this is a procedure that will make sure that the process is closed only and reserved for the stakeholders who will be involved in the next stage. Thanks to the framework that we have selected, this is not only about the use of blockchain technology, but at the same time, this is about the power of smart contracts. And actually, this is a platform where we are coding our business practices. These are actually the applications. Within the export processes, smart controls are being used to make sure the control of data. And in certain steps in the way, the automated way of completing the procedures will be possible. Thanks to this technology, maybe I better give you some examples from the project for the sake of a better understanding for all stakeholders. The information that is to be created is the ATL circulation paper. For the ATR circulation paper, when we consider this for the project, one of our targets is a switch to paperless or a soft copy environment. Actually, for the ATR certificate, it's quite likely to make it possible. In this respect, rather than a hard copy, we can also make sure that it is considered as a soft copy document. If this is the case, then the Meadow system data will be transferred in a digital platform, but the document is used as a hard copy. Therefore, I believe that it is a need for a safer environment to make the controls. At this point, within the blockchain network that we create, we define our stakeholders in advance with the entry of the IDs. At this point, the essential source of data will be written on the blockchain. And in this respect, the data for the ATR circulation paper will be updated by the customs clearance officer. And once the data is prepared by the customs clearance officer, it will upload a request to write the data on the blockchain. Before the data is written on the blockchain, these relevant smart contracts will be triggered, which also will be considered whether the ATR data comes in the right format, whether compulsory areas are filled in properly or not. And therefore, the set of rules will be triggered as defined so as to
yazılmadığını garanti altına
check whether the relevant stakeholders are making the proper controls, and also a verification is made in terms of content. In this respect, if control procedure is correct, then data will be written on the blockchain and shared with other stakeholders. So in case any mistake is detected in the data, it will not be accepted by the system. Therefore, the smart contract will be embedded with the system itself. Another example is automatized data. Actually, this is another example I can give you from the project, and let me give you a specific project from the an example from the project. Here, in the existing process analysis, an insurance policy is included. As a result of our scrutinized work, we look whether the insurance policy, after uploading data, which are just invoices and some other pieces of information, with this data acquired, it is prepared as manually, and then the authority to achieve the policy is getting the certificate on an email. Actually, it can be automatized quite simply. At this point, there is a two-stage system that we're running. According to the rank of the procedures, e-invoice is taken from the exporter, and later on the insurance policy, the registration plate of the vehicle is required. With the data of the transfer document written on the blockchain, thanks to some automatized processes, these two data are just written on the blockchain. Therefore, the automated request is created, information entered, and we make sure that relevant stakeholders receive this information. In this respect, it is possible to make a manual compilation of the data. We're using e-mails currently, but now we are moving into this area where no piece of data is created, but rather the process is automatically designed and created. All these procedures are just two examples of tens of procedures conducted in the project. And by also uniting the processes with the complementary processes, almost 80 procedures are completed, and we are now down to 50 procedures from 80. The project that we're working on is a proof of concept project, just to repeat that. In this respect, there is no true integration with stakeholders. The systems where the true integration is conducted, the relevant stakeholders will be using the ERP systems to make some software modifications and improvements. Therefore, these steps of the procedure may be simplified even further. At the same time, we want to achieve a more effective progress. Therefore, as Mrs. Shafak emphasized, the changes that we are making here will also be finding a reflection in the counterpart country. Therefore, thanks to the end-to-end procedures that we are conducted, the procedures will become an acceptable format in the transboundary usage. Therefore, there will be no impact on the international trade in this respect. We have to say that all this will be regulated accordingly.
As
As the first, we know that this is the first step, and we're still continuing our activities. Would like to thank you for your distinguished attendance. Would like to leave the floor to Tayfun Bey for Q&A. Thank you very much, Ümmü Gülsüm Hanım. We have received many questions. To start off with the first question, maybe there is something you'd like to add to that because you covered it. In the next steps of exports, to run any process like an approval process, can we also trigger the smart contract system automatically? Now, quickly, I'd like to say that actually, as I was giving you the examples, I referred to that in my talk, but the examples are just the two examples from the tens of procedures in our process. One of our stakeholders will also take a look at the end-to-end digitalization, and MEDA system is also integrated and digitalized, transferred into the blockchain platform. In this system, actually, the approval processes that are conducted will be carried out on the blockchain. Actually, this is the national scenario. Considering and also inflicting it in the international platform, we can say that if the international phase is achieved, I think it's quite doable, and we can take simplification to a further stage, I think. We do believe that any product produced in Turkey and the certificates that will be produced within the Turkish authorities will be subject to the smart contract projects. Therefore, as the pillars in Turkey are achieved, I believe will not be constrained within the approval of the authorities in Turkey, but I believe that the approvals of the international authorities will also be possible by blockchain technologies. This is something that we anticipate. Thank you, Ümmü Gülsüm. We have another question. The business processes are to be shortened. Will it be a contribution to the trade and international trade? Actually, the export processes will become more effective with less cost, and also the time-wise gains will be there. And can you elaborate on that as well? Now, with the transfer of these activities, we will come down from almost 80 steps to 50 steps as the procedural steps. So we do expect an improvement. In this proof of concept activity, we're still developing the improvement of software. Once this is completed, true and real digital data will be used to verify. The Ministry has been assisting us in this respect, and we are thankful to them, but our target is not to leave the proof of concept at the level it is, but rather to look into the export procedures to become more effective, improved, and developed at the same time, and to see the implications of our project on these processes. Therefore, there will be a major relief in the manual work burden, but of course, as we define them quantitatively, we'll be reporting it to our authorities and we'll be sharing it with our distinguished stakeholders. But what we anticipate is to avoid the manual processes, to automatize them. In this respect, the procedures that are achieved by a human hand in several hours is just down to several minutes. Therefore, just dispatching it to the banks, requesting insurance policies automatically to the relevant authorities will be improved on an end-to-end basis. Let me give you an example to support that. Actually, we are working with one of our exporters, and for the analysis of existing processes, the financial department is just informing us that the process takes about 2 hours, because the financial departments of exporters are not dealing with the single procedures. If they're, say, paying taxes, the rest of the works will need to be ordered.
since there is an order of the electronic transfers. Therefore, the procedure that generally takes 2 hours, like insurance payments or submitting insurance policy creations, I think will take several minutes, and we can go down to 1 minute indeed to complete the procedure. Actually, it's not true integration. I'd like to highlight you that this is just a proof of concept activity, and there is no test with the creation of the data, but there will be some deviations in the test results, but yet we're coming down from 2 hours to 5 minutes maximum. So it will be a lot of saving, even for one authority and one procedure. It will be an incredible improvement because it will be saving from the efforts, time, and money. In this respect, within the project, we have about 15 stakeholders. For every stakeholder, even this much of an improvement means a lot, and it will have an incredible reflection in the general outlook. Thank you very
Çok
much.
teşekkürler. Sorular
Thank
geldi.
you, and we keep on receiving questions, but I also would like to answer and contribute to this second question. There will
çıkacaktır gibi bir ihracat artışı hesaplamak gibi bir çıktımız olmayacak değil mi? Yani
actually, we will not be calculating the trade outputs like we will have the trade incomes from 10 to 15 billion euros or something, and this is not the expected outcome. There are expected advantages and disadvantages maybe for our trade, but there will not be no clear export outcome. Thank you very much for it, and I've concentrated on the technical aspect, and thank you for the question. Actually, we are looking into how we can improve the stakeholder processes, and it will be the authorities' assessment of their own gains. In total, it will probably have a trade volume effect, but we can run a separate study on that. And rather than the economic enlargement of the volume, we will have a contribution to the technical infrastructure, as it will be in accelerating the trade processes. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. And there is one thing, one perspective that I've missed, and you brought it up. Thank you. As you know, speaking of blockchain, there are always problems about unmodifiable documents. And one question comes on that, the documents uploaded in the blockchain system, if there is any error on that, will it be possible to correct the mistakes? Actually, we get this question quite frequently. If there is a wrong entry of data, how to correct it? On the ATR document, if there is any feedback from the exporter, if we want to elaborate on the explanation of the commodities, how can we make a re-entry? The infrastructure that we're using as a framework of the blockchain technology is entirely about doability of the procedures without any time lag. What do I mean? Well, the technology that we're using is truly, yes, unchangeable, and it provides data entry into the system of database. But the aim is not to make any delay in your existing business procedures. Well, you can rewrite data on blockchain, but we can follow it on the blockchain. What do I mean? Every set of data, if it's entered on the blockchain, there is a unique ID, such as your identity number that is entered in the system. Together with the ID, if the data is really rewritable in case of any change or mistake on the piece of data, relevant stakeholder or authority, if they're authorized to rewrite that data, we allow it. But the previous data will never be allowed to be deleted. Therefore, whenever there is any need for control or audit on the ATR document, for instance, if a customs clearance officer has written the same document 2 times, also the Ministry of, for instance, Trade, if it's the authority to allow, will allow you to rewrite that piece of data, but it will be kept together with the previous version of the data. And if the relevant authorities want to have access to the previous version, they will be allowed to do so, but it will be only the latest version that will be conveyed to the counterparts. Therefore, you can use the certificate or the document as you want, but together with the unchangeable feature, all the procedure steps will remain in the system. This is somehow working as a measure against counterfeiting, and the relevant authorities may trigger their own control and audit mechanisms in this respect. And there is something that caught my attention here, and I think it is worth making an emphasis. And the question is about the mistake on the document, but the document is only an instrument transporting a piece of information from one place to the other. Do we still need a document, or will it no longer be available since the system allows for access to all the process of information? As I've covered it in my presentation, I didn't re-emphasize it, but hard copies are avoided for this document. Invoices, statements, the ATR documents, and any kind of documents like the insurance policies will be flowing into the system as data. So it means that there is no image, screened version, scanned PDF, nothing of the document. We're entirely speaking about data sets. And the way we have designed it in the infrastructure is that all of the data will come as e-invoice and just a few instructions coming from the exporters. It's all kind of an extra data. Once these are digitalized, it creates a new structure that is the export procedure. Therefore, there are some applications that are created to complement with these complementary applications, customs clearance documents will be reduced by almost 90%, and the circulation documents by 95%. Transfer documents will be automatically filled in by 85%, only for the purposes of the exports. There is just the invoice coming from the side of the exporter, maybe some other documents. So we are speaking about almost 90% of automatization in terms of the outputs you're creating. So the system doesn't allow for a lot of mistakes, particularly in some documents. And the reason that I'm giving ATR document as an example is it is only in the explanation of the commodities. If the exporter needs, there will be some additional remarks that you will be asked to in detail. Except for that, it will not be possible to enter any data manually. So it means we cannot make any mistake there. Together with this automatization and with the complementary applications, the blockchain system will be supported as an integrated structure. So it will not be the case to rewrite, enter, or correct any kind of information. Together with avoiding the paperwork, I think digitalization will take place fully. Thank you very much, Typhoon Bay. So it has given me the opportunity to clarify. Thank you very much. There is no doubt that it is the will of the ministry that is behind these projects. Therefore, it's really important that the project is a public project. But a participant of ours asks, is it only applicable to the authorities of the public or the government or the private authorities? Will they also be involved in the smart contract processes? In other words, will it be open to the freight forwarders, customs clearance officers and such companies, or logistics companies? A very good question, but technically I would like to speak of the content. It will be about 15 stakeholders, all of whom are taking place to fulfill the procedures within the country. All stakeholders. And the start of the project is about importing the electrical bicycles. Insurance company, freight forwarders, trade chambers, exporters unions, Ministry of Trade, so on and so forth, including the banks, because you know the insurance premium payments, taxes, everything is involved. So all the parties, almost 15 parties are identified. Therefore, the data writing systems are transferred to the blockchain as well. For the accuracy of the data will also be coded by smart contracts. At this point, it's not only public but semi-public authorities and the other private sector stakeholders having a role in the process will take active role in the project. So they all will be covered and involved. Their works are to be digitalized by smart layers of the project. Thank you very much. It's really very comprehensive explanation by Gülsüm Hanım, and I don't have a lot to add, but it's not just the public authorities, public and private, all involved in exports procedures will be there.
Peki şüphesiz dijitalleşme, dijital entegrasyon,
Undoubtedly,
dijital
digitalization, digital integration, and
etkileyebilir,
shift
bu
to
iş dünyası
digital
olarak aklınızda
processes
kalan
will increase our
genel
efficiency
iş dünyası
and
bu türlü bir
effectiveness. But
altyapılar
we all know
ilave
that
istihdam, ilave
such
yatırım gerektiriyor.
infrastructures will
Bir
require
konuşmacı
additional
Ekesyo'nun katılımcısı
employment.
Özgür söylemişti.
One of
Sistem
our
entegre olan
participants
firmalar bölgesinde diyetisyen çalışanı
asks,
istihdam etmek zorunda kalacak.
will we be in the position of employing new people for the use of the system? Well, technically, there are two ways of considering it. First, within the existing structure, the companies, if they need any digital support, if they are to use any kind of product, there are two ways to follow. Either they will be getting in contact with an outsourcer, an outsourcing company, or they will need to employ the required staff for their transformation. And the same will be true for this process as well. If the company has a strong IT infrastructure already, or if they're willing to make an investment in that, they will be making an employment to make sure that the digital transformation can take place through their own intermediary agencies, or they may outsource technology from a specialized company, particularly in the way of implementing the system, so they can also outsource services as well. So the two methods will be there if they'd like to.
Benim için son derece teknik
Well,
bir
it's been
soruyla
quite
devam
technical
ediyorum.
question
Özel
for
verinin
me.
derlenmesi,
For the compilation of the oral data and processing of that data, GPS-based vector data, will it be possible to keep it in recording as well? Correct me if I am wrong, but line data, can we use them for creating smart contracts? Within the framework of the project, this structure is not considered. As I say, electronic invoices are issued and regulated, and together with the departure of the commodities from the border, our processes will be over. So what we mean is it's about the movement of commodities, dispatching of the commodities, and integrating it with the ERP system or the relevant software systems of the relevant authorities, and if and when required, the produced commercially valuable data will be transferred to blockchain if it is subject to some approval, and at the same time, if there is an expected approval, digitalization of approvals will be another expected outcome and output of the project. So these are the limits of the project, and these are the expected outputs of the project. Other than that, we will not be there to help because the content is only limited with these items. Let's speak of money. All the payments seem to take place with cryptocurrencies. So for the currently available regulations, financial regulations, would you have a financial recommendation? Actually, let me speak about the content of the project.
Bunu gündeme almadık.
Currently, we're not about using the cryptocurrencies, and when also considering the content of the project, there will be the need for that piece of legislation as well. But to be able to take action swiftly, we have intentionally avoided the structures that would require major amendments in the legislation. Insurance premium payments, tax payments, and also bank transactions will be considered. But here there is a partial digitalization in this respect in our communication with them. In other words, when there is a need for paying any taxes or some premium, the payment orders will be automatically created, but the payment procedure will be executed on TL or internationally acceptable currencies. In this respect, a cryptocurrency is not included in our project yet, but we don't know how the legislation will work in this respect, how the ministry will be raising demands in the course of the project. We don't know about it now, but these are the limits of the project for the moment. So cryptocurrency is not an issue for the moment. In this respect, we are involving the money requiring processes in the project, but not the money yet, right? Yes. Well, the other country export data. Do you think it will be available and accessible on an electronic platform? The project currently considers the procedures within the Turkish boundaries. Once the commodity leaves the borders, our tracking system is complete. Therefore, there is no international pillar of the project yet. But as I have covered in my talk, in the future, and when considering the end-to-end nature of the project, probably, and it seems to be that this will be the direction that we will be moving towards. Technology paves the way for that, and similarity of the customs legislation are all parallel, but the scope of the project does not yet include international transactions.
Peki sisteme girilen verilerin ve bu verilerin işlenmesiyle
How
ortaya
about the
çıkan
data
sonuçların
entered in the
delil olma
system?
niteliği korunuyor mu? Bir diğer deyişle
Will the
bakanlar
data be
tarafından kabul
constituted
edilen
as
resmi bilgi
evidence
niteliğine sahip
acceptable
olacak mı
by
bu sisteme
judicial
girilen veriler
authorities?
ve veriler?
Tabii ki
Of
proje
course.
kapsamında yaptığımız çalışmaların aslında büyük ölçüde
Actually,
mevzuat
the legislation is in parallel with the legislation. This is a very good reason why everything is parallel with the legislation. Once the infrastructure becomes verified, we will get the digitalized version of all of our processes, particularly if there is a permittable blockchain framework that is to be elected. That is the very reason. Know your customer is the mechanism that is working under this system. So the stakeholders who will be submitting, approving data are just defined before activation of the blockchain system. Therefore, all the stakeholders will be liable for the accuracy of the data they will be submitting to the system. Ministry of Trade is a stakeholder, one point to emphasize, and the data control will be made by the ministry. Therefore, within the data system, as we are submitting data and making a statement on that, any time that you are making a false statement will cause you some sanctions, the same as you're doing it with the hard copies and with the current system, as you are making the statement and as the data is verified, and once there is a faulty piece of data, there will be the case of issuing sanctions when there is a misleading statement and also submitting of the data. So the liability is sustained. This is the way that I can answer your question.
Panel
Thank you.
Oscar'ı olsaydı biz bugün panel Oscar'ını herhalde alırdık.
Well, if there were any panel Oscars, we would have been awarded the Oscars. This is the 59th minute of the panel. Unless there is any remark that
remains untouched. I would like to close timely. There are some other questions popping up. I would like to say that, particularly about the future steps of the project and about the technical details of the project, you know, there are people asking questions.
Değerli panelistlerimiz ve katılımcılarımız, bugünlük burada duralım.
I would like to close the session for the sake of time, but I'm taking note of the coming questions and will be transferring it to the relevant people who would be there to answer the questions. There are 6-7 questions always asking the same thing. How shall we have access to these data in the future? İhracat at blockchain at ates.com.tr will be addressing your questions, and these panels will continue until December. There will be some informative sessions until December. Just keep following us. Mehmet Bey, Hasan Bey, Şafak Hanım, and Gülsüm Hanım, thank you very much for your contributions, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank all of you for sparing some time to attend this panel. Would like to close the session, if I may. Thank you.